Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, dear students. In today's lecture, we are going to discuss two important topics. The first topic that we are going to discuss is pulmonary functions test, and the second topic that we are going to discuss is non-respiratory functions of the respiratory tract. First, we are going to talk about the pulmonary functions test. Pulmonary function tests are useful methods for studying the pulmonary abnormalities. Although these tests are not diagnostic of specific pulmonary diseases, but they help to differentiate between the obstructive and restrictive lung diseases. In the previous lectures, I have told you a little bit about the obstructive and restrictive lung diseases. I am again repeating it up that the lung diseases can be divided into two major groups, the obstructive lung diseases and the restrictive lung diseases. The obstructive lung diseases are characterized by chronic airway obstruction and increased resistance to flow of air, especially during expiration, while restrictive lung diseases are characterized by decrease in lung compliance. So the diseases which result in fibrosis in the interstitial tissue of the lung or which interfere with the lung expansion and result in decreased lung compliance are grouped under the term restrictive lung diseases. So pulmonary function tests help us to differentiate between the obstructive and restrictive lung diseases. The different pulmonary function tests include the study of arterial blood gases, determination of the blood pH, and determination of lung volumes and capacities by spirometry, and many other. So we are going to discuss all these tests one by one. First, we are going to talk about the study of the arterial blood gases. In this test, what we do is we determine the partial pressure of oxygen or the concentration of oxygen and the carbon dioxide in the arterial blood. It gives us useful information about the alveolar ventilation. And from our previous discussions, you must know the normal values of partial pressure of oxygen in the arterial blood as well as the partial pressure of carbon dioxide in the arterial blood. I am again repeating that normal value of partial pressure of oxygen in the arterial blood is 95 mm of mercury, and under normal circumstances 97 to 98% of the blood is saturated with oxygen. On the other hand, the normal partial pressure of carbon dioxide in the arterial blood is 40 mm of mercury. If on arterial blood gas analysis the partial pressure of oxygen is decreased and there is increased carbon dioxide concentration or increase in partial pressure of carbon dioxide in the arterial blood, it tells us about the inadequacy of the pulmonary ventilation. Inadequacy of pulmonary ventilation or the gas exchange in the lungs. So by doing the arterial blood gas analysis, we can have a fair idea about the adequacy of alveolar ventilation and gas exchange as well. The next test is determination of the blood pH. Normal arterial pH of the blood is 7.4. A fall in the pH can occur due to retention of carbon dioxide in the blood, which can occur due to abnormal lung functions in different lung diseases, or simply retention of carbon dioxide can also occur when there is depressed pulmonary ventilation, either due to depression of the respiratory center by narcotics, by drugs or sedatives, or due to some obstruction in the airways, there is inadequate alveolar ventilation. It will lead to retention of carbon dioxide in the blood and it will cause a fall in the pH of the blood or acidosis. And in this situation, this type of acidosis is known as respiratory acidosis. The next test is forced expiration time. Forced expiration time. In doing this test, the subject is asked to empty his chest as fast as possible after a maximum inspiration. So it is basically the forced vital capacity, and we are noting the time required to exhale out the forced vital capacity. So that time which is required to exhale out the forced vital capacity is known as forced expiration time. The normal value of forced expiration time is 3 to 4 seconds. It means that it takes 3 to 4 seconds to exhale out the maximum volume of air from the lungs after maximum inspiration. Forced expiration time is prolonged in obstructive lung diseases. It is prolonged in obstructive lung diseases. Next test that can be done is the vital capacity, measurement of the vital capacity. For your revision, the vital capacity is defined as the maximum volume of air which can be exhaled out at a slow rate after a maximum inspiration. I am repeating that maximum volume of air that can be exhaled out at a slow rate after maximum inspiration is the vital capacity. The normal value of vital capacity is 4600 ml. It is decreased in both obstructive as well as the restrictive lung diseases. So while discussing each test, each pulmonary function test, we will be focusing on its change in the two groups of the lung diseases, that are the obstructive and restrictive lung diseases. So vital capacity is a lung capacity which is decreased in both obstructive and restrictive lung diseases. Next test is determination of forced vital capacity. We have already discussed these tests when we did the topic of spirometry, so it is a just revision for you. So forced vital capacity is the maximum volume of air that can be forcefully expelled out of the lungs in shortest possible time after a maximum inspiration. So in determining the forced vital capacity, the subject is given instruction to exhale out as fast as possible in shortest possible time. The normal value of forced vital capacity is 4600 ml. Here you must be able to very clearly differentiate between the vital capacity and the forced vital capacity. Vital capacity is simply to exhale out after maximum inspiration, and it is not mandatory to exhale out as forcefully as possible in shortest possible time. While in determining the forced vital capacity after maximum inspiration, the subject is given the instruction to exhale out forcefully in shortest possible time. So this is the difference between the vital capacity and the forced vital capacity. Forced vital capacity may be normal or it may be decreased in obstructive lung diseases. It is reduced in obstructive lung diseases, but the decrease may not be marked, or sometimes it may be normal. But the forced vital capacity is always decreased in restrictive lung diseases. So in obstructive lung diseases, it may be normal or it may be slightly decreased, but in case of restrictive lung diseases, it is always decreased. Next test is forced expiratory volume in 1 second, that is known as FEV1. FEV1, it's the abbreviation for this test. It is the volume of air which is exhaled out in the first second during measurement of forced vital capacity. It is the volume of air that is exhaled in the first second during measurement of forced vital capacity, and it is expressed as a percentage of forced vital capacity and is known as FEV1 to FVC ratio. Normal ratio is 75% to 85%, which means that 75 to 85% of the air is exhaled in the first second during measurement of forced vital capacity. FEV1 to FVC ratio, it is markedly decreased in obstructive lung diseases and can be as low as 47%. It can be reduced to almost half of the normal ratio. Normal ratio is 75% to 85%, while it may decrease to as low as 47% in obstructive lung diseases. In restrictive lung diseases, this ratio is either normal or it may slightly increase. Now this is because of the fact that in case of restrictive lung diseases, there is a proportionate decrease in forced expiratory volume in first second, that is FEV1 and FVC. I am repeating again that in restrictive lung diseases, there is an equal decrease in FVC and FEV1. So the ratio remains the same because both the numerator and denominator are equally changing. So the ratio will remain the same. But in case of obstructive lung diseases, there is more reduction in FEV1 as compared to FVC. As we just discussed in the previous slide, that FVC might be normal or slightly decrease in obstructive lung diseases. So the reduction in FEV1 and FVC in case of obstructive lung diseases is not proportionate. There is more decrease in FEV1 as compared to FVC. So because of this reason, FEV1 to FVC ratio in obstructive lung diseases is markedly reduced or decreased. And significance of measuring of FEV1 to FVC ratio is that it helps to differentiate between the obstructive and restrictive lung diseases. So here is the graph showing us the forced vital capacity, FEV1, and the FEV1 to FVC ratio in normal and in a person with airway obstruction or the person having obstructive lung disease. First we look at the upper part of the diagram. So first, during measurement of forced vital capacity, first the subject is instructed to inhale maximally. So after maximum inspiration, he exhale out as fast as possible, or we can say he exhales out forcefully in shortest possible time. So in a normal person, we can see that this is the time on the x-axis, and in a normal person we can see that about 85%, here it is 80%, so we restrict to 80%. So about 80% of the air is exhaled out in the first second, while the rest is exhaled out in the remaining time. And the total time that is required to exhale out FVC is about 4 seconds. That is the forced expiration time that we discussed in the beginning. So total air is exhaled out, total FVC is exhaled out in about 4 seconds, and in the first second 80% of air is exhaled out. So normal FEV1 to FVC percentage or the ratio is 80%. In case of obstructive lung diseases, we can see a marked reduction in FEV1, that is the volume of air which is exhaled out in the first second is decreased to a much greater extent as compared to decrease in FVC. So this is forced vital capacity total volume, although it is decreased. Here you can see it is 4 liter, while in this part, in a patient of obstructive lung disease, FVC is reduced to about 3.5. So although FVC is decreased, but the decrease is not very marked, but there is a marked decrease you can see in the FEV1. So this is the reason for the reduction and decrease in FEV1 to FVC ratio. And in this diagram we can also see, in this graph we can also see that forced expiration time is prolonged in patient of obstructive lung diseases. Normally it takes about 4 seconds to exhale out forced vital capacity, while in patient of obstructive lung disease it takes more time to exhale out FVC. So FVC, although is decreased, but not to a great extent, more marked reduction in FEV1, and there is prolongation of forced expiration time in case of obstructive lung diseases. While in restrictive lung diseases there is a proportionate decrease in FEV1 and FVC, so ratio will not change. The same diagram. Moving on to the next test, which is peak expiratory flow rate. In this test, the subject is asked to breathe with maximum force into the peak flow meter. So this test is performed using a flow meter which is called as peak flow meter, and patient expires through the flow meter forcefully with maximum force. It is measured in liter per minute. The normal value is 400 liter per minute. The normal peak expiratory flow rate is 400 liter per minute. Peak expiratory flow rate is decreased both in obstructive as well as restrictive lung diseases. It is decreased in both obstructive and restrictive lung diseases. So this slide shows us the expiratory flow rate as measured by peak flow meter. On the x-axis we have lung volume, and on the y-axis we have the flow rate given in liter per minute, and this is the flow rate in a normal person. And in normal person we have just seen that value of flow rate is 400 liter per minute. This is the total lung capacity. This is the residual volume, that is the volume of air that will be present in the lungs after most forceful expiration. So normal flow rate is 400 liter per minute. Now this slide shows us the comparison of the peak expiratory flow rate in a normal person and with patients of obstructive and restrictive lung diseases. Constricted lungs mean restrictive lung disease. So in normal person, we have just seen in the previous slide as well, it is 400 liter per minute. And we can see it is reduced in obstructive lung diseases as well as in restrictive lung diseases. You can also observe other findings in this graph, like residual volume. It is less in the patients of restrictive lung diseases. One thing you should remember, that in patients of restrictive lung diseases, all lung volumes and capacities are decreased. There is a decrease in all the lung volumes and capacities in patients of restrictive lung diseases. So there you can see there is a decreased residual volume in a patient of restrictive lung disease, as well as there is decrease in the total lung capacity. Here this TLC stands for total lung capacity. This is marked for the normal person, and this is the total lung capacity in a patient of constricted lungs. So it is decreased, you can see. And when you look at the graph of airway obstruction, here we can see that residual volume is increased. Residual volume is increased in obstructive lung diseases. This is because of the trapping of air inside the lungs, because airway obstruction causes the expiration more difficult as compared to inspiration. So air is trapped inside the lungs, and progressively there is increase in the residual volume as well as functional residual capacity. And here is the total lung capacity. It is increased in patients of obstructive lung diseases. It is again because of the reason that residual volume in the patients of obstructive lung diseases is increased. We can also determine the respiratory minute volume. We have already studied it in the first chapter of respiration, that respiratory minute volume is the volume of air that moves into respiratory passages in 1 minute. So tidal volume is 500 ml, and when we multiply the tidal volume with respiratory rate, what we get is the respiratory minute volume. So multiplying 500 with 12 will give us 6000 ml or 6 liter. So 6 liter of air moves into respiratory passages each minute, which is the normal respiratory minute volume. Then we can determine the functional residual capacity. We almost talked about it in the previous slide. For your revision, that functional residual capacity is the volume of air that remains in the lungs at the end of normal breathing. The normal value of functional residual capacity is 2300 ml. In obstructive lung diseases, the value of functional residual capacity is increased. So I just have explained the reason of increase in the functional residual capacity and the residual volume. And in case of restrictive lung diseases, the functional residual capacity is decreased. Then we can also determine the residual volume, which is the volume of air remaining in the lungs after forceful expiration. The normal value of residual volume is 1200 ml, and it is increased in obstructive lung diseases, while residual volume is decreased in case of restrictive lung diseases. As I just told you, that in case of restrictive lung diseases, all lung volumes and capacities are decreased. Then we can also determine the diffusing capacity of the respiratory membrane. We have also discussed this test in detail in the previous lectures. Diffusing capacity is defined as the volume of air that moves volume of a gas, sorry, it is defined as the volume of the gas that diffuses across the respiratory membrane in 1 minute for a partial pressure difference of 1 millimeter of mercury. So normal diffusing capacity of oxygen is 21 ml per minute per millimeter of mercury, while the diffusing capacity of carbon dioxide is 400 to 450 ml per minute per millimeter of mercury. So diffusing capacity of respiratory membrane may it may decrease in certain respiratory diseases, like it can decrease in emphysema, or when there is pulmonary edema, or when there is pneumonia. All these are going to affect the gas exchange across the lung and can result in decrease in diffusing capacity of respiratory membrane. The next test is pulse oximetry. Pulse oximetry is done using the pulse oximeter. Here this is the figure of a pulse oximeter. Pulse oximeter tells us the percentage saturation of blood with oxygen. So this is a device which is known as pulse oximeter, and on this you can see there are two values being shown. One thing that you can determine is the percentage saturation of oxygen in the blood. Here as you can see 99%, this is the saturation of blood with oxygen. And the second thing which is being displayed is the pulse rate or the heart rate. So pulse oximetry can be done to find out the percentage saturation of blood with oxygen, and we know from our previous discussions that normal oxygen in a normal person 98% of the blood is saturated with oxygen. Then the last test is maximum breathing capacity. Although this test is not performed now, but I will just tell you what it is. In determination of the maximum breathing capacity, the subject is asked to breathe as rapidly and deeply as possible for 15 seconds. The volume of air which is breathed during this time is measured and is multiplied by a factor of 4 to determine the breathing capacity in 1 minute. So this test is usually not performed, as I just told you, and the reason for this is that it gives the same information as we get from determination of FEV1. So FEV1 is more important to perform, and FEV1 to FVC ratio as well. So this was about the pulmonary functions test. Now we are going to discuss the other topic, which are the non-respiratory functions of the lung. Now lungs have many functions which are unrelated to the respiration. These are called as non-respiratory functions of the lungs. And these functions include the synthetic functions, activation of certain substances or inactivation of certain substances, immune functions, etc. So we are going to discuss these now. The lungs are involved in the synthesis of certain prostaglandins. Histamine, heparin and kallikrein are also produced in the lung. So this is the synthetic function. So lungs are involved in the synthesis of prostaglandins, histamine, heparin and kallikrein. Several compounds circulating in the blood are inactivated when they pass through the lungs. And these substances include the bradykinin, histamine and serotonin. The endothelial cells in the pulmonary capillaries have an enzyme attached to their surface. This enzyme is angiotensin converting enzyme. Angiotensin converting enzyme is responsible for converting angiotensin 1 to angiotensin 2. So lungs are involved in conversion of angiotensin 1 into angiotensin 2 because the endothelial cells of the pulmonary capillaries have the enzyme angiotensin converting enzyme on their surface. The negativity of the intrathoracic pressure, it helps in the venous return. So during inspiration, when intrathoracic pressure is further decreased or when it becomes further negative, it increases the venous return to the heart. This is called as respiratory pump for the venous return. Then lungs act as reservoir of blood. We have discussed this function in detail when we talked about the pulmonary circulation. Mucus secreted by the goblet cells contain the lysozyme and the antibodies. So lungs have antibacterial properties. In the tissues of the lungs are also present the lymphocytes and the plasma cells and the macrophages. So it's play an active role in immunity, in protecting the body against different invaders and pathogens by having antibacterial property and by having the cells of immune system. Lungs are a route for the excretion of water and heat. So water loss occurs through the respiratory passages and heat elimination also occurs through the respiration. Lungs also help in regulation of acid-base balance. When there is disturbance of acid-base balance due to metabolic causes or due to renal causes, lungs or the respiratory system tries to compensate this disturbance of acid-base balance. You will study this topic in detail in second year along with the acid-base balance. Then lungs, the parts of the respiratory system, enable speech, singing and other forms of vocalization. And finally, last but not the least, nose, which is a part of respiratory system, it serves as an organ of smell. So this was about the non-respiratory functions of the lungs. And that's all about for today's lecture. I hope you understand the lecture. Thank you for the listening.